In this tutorial, we're going to just finish off naming our battery and preparing it for exporting in ZBrush. So the first thing to do is to check the outliner to see how well our object's been organized. So we can go to Window and Outliner. And here we can see all of the groups and all of the everything pretty much that makes up our Maya scene. We've got the cameras here at the top. We've got some what looks like groups here. Most of these are phantom groups. They don't have a plus symbol next to them, so you can't expand them out. So they don't actually have anything currently associated with them, that they've been left behind from previous commands such as combine or separate, or previous groups that have been ungrouped, and they've just been left behind. Quite a lot of the time as well, people will, to try and group an object to move it as a whole or to resize it, they'll, instead of hitting the up arrow on the keyboard, they'll just keep hitting Control G, and you'll end up with this, which is groups within groups within groups within groups, and it can get really messy. So we need to sort all of this out, and we actually need to name it as well. It can be quite a boring process, but for example, if you're exporting something to Mudbox or to the CryEngine, and you've got a particular piece of geometry that has an issue, it will tell you exactly what that geometry is. So it's very important to name as you go. And also for anyone else that's going to be looking at your work or working alongside you, or the next person along in the VFX pipeline, they're going to be able to want to see what's what and how you've organized it. So before we do anything in the outliner, we need to delete the history. So that's the very first step. If we start deleting some of these transform connections before deleting the history, we may end up actually deleting our geometry as well. So first of all, delete history. Sometimes deleting the history will get rid of some of these phantom groups or phantom objects. So we can see here now inside the group, if we click on any of these names here, we can see the associated geometry being selected in the viewport. And again, if we click on the viewport, we can see things being selected here. So we can see exactly what's what. And at the moment, everything is contained within this group hierarchy here. Let's first of all get rid of some of these phantom groups, these groups without a plus symbol next to them there. So I'm just going to click on the top one, shift, click to the bottom one, and hit delete. And if you've deleted history, nothing else in your scene should be deleted, so it should be perfectly safe to do so. Next, we need to ungroup all of this. So we can go to Edit and Ungroup, but we'd have to do this several times to get everything out properly. So the best thing to do is just click on the geometry at the top of the list, Shift, click at the bottom, and then hold down the middle mouse button. And when you hold down the middle mouse button, you're now able to move geometry out of the group. Or if you want to move something down in the list, you're able to hold down your middle mouse button and move it down, for example. So now that we've removed these from the group, it's left the group behind just to be annoying. We need to delete that as well, just to be safe. Delete history and then delete your group like that. Next, we can go through and name everything. And again, it's usually best to start naming stuff before you duplicate anything, because otherwise now you're going to have to name each of the support beams several times. So but that's our own fault. So I'll start off with a big geometry here, and as we name things, if we name something a duplicate name, it will automatically put a number next to it as well. We can start seeing if we start naming these supports here. I'll actually just copy that so I can paste it later on. And as soon as we hit enter, it'll put a number in afterwards, so it should do it quite quickly for us. I'm just pasting in the name into the supports here. Hit 4, you're able to see through your geometry as well, so you know exactly what's being selected. So I've named my geometry like this, and now if there's an error, for example, so the way that we've modeled the control panel has an issue, same thing if you're exporting to the CryEngine, you'll be able to narrow down exactly where the problem is and delete it or correct it really quick. So we now need to group these, so just select all your geometry either in the 3D viewport or in here. It's usually easy to select in the 3D viewport so you don't select any other bits lying around by mistake. And then hit Control G, and then we're going to name this your battery. And the final step before we're able to say that this is being is ready now to be textured in Photoshop or Mudbox. We just need to center the pivot properly. So if we just go to the top view and hit 4, so we can see wireframe, I can now close the outliner. Okay, so we need to move our geometry to the center of the grid. The best way to do this is just select your geometry and make sure you select the whole group, and then in your top view go to center pivot, so the pivot's centered to the middle, the exact middle of your geometry, and then you can hold down X and that will snap the middle of the pivot to the grid. So you can see the lines on the grid there and we're snapping to them. I'm going to snap to the very middle of the graph there, and so now the pivot's at the middle of the geometry and the geometry is exactly in the middle of the scene. Let's just go to your side view and we're going to just move the geometry up, but just do it by eye and try and line up the geometry so that the bottom of it lands on the grid like this. After you've done that, it's best to hit freeze transformations and then reset transformations. Usually when you're exporting game assets or anything like that, you snap the pivot to the bottom of the object so that it's when it's placed on the terrain, you can resize it and it resizes against the terrain, not so that it ends up hovering in midair, because nothing really goes like that. So just reset transformations. Reset transformations only moves your pivot to the middle of the grid, not to the bottom of the object. But because we've moved the object perfectly into this position, the reset transformations is now also at the very bottom center of our object. And this is now would be ready to go in to be textured. And once it's been textured, it would then be ready to be exported into a games engine or something like that. And that's it.